Hello, I'm Nan Roman, President of the National Alliance to End Homelessness. All of us at the Alliance are so excited that you've joined us today for Hill Day. Over 1,000 of you from across the country, having hundreds of meetings with members of Congress and their staff. Of course, we always appreciate your work to end homelessness and your advocacy. This is a special year, however, for two reasons. First, of course, what everyone has gone through over the past 15 months. The pandemic and all that has meant to homeless programs, decompressing shelter, moving people to motels and hotels for quarantine and isolation, and really just for plain basic health and safety, trying to keep people on the street safe, all you've done with diminished staff and at great risk to everyone involved. And second, what people experiencing homelessness have gone through in the past 15 months. The main thing we were all told to do to keep safe during COVID was to stay home. Obviously, that was not possible for people experiencing homelessness. The risk and the fear and the lack of information they experienced, and of course, the inability to address their most basic human needs. And on top of the pandemic was the complete shutdown of the economy, the loss of jobs, and what has likely been an increase in homelessness and unsheltered homelessness as a result. This has been painful for so many, and there is a lot to be concerned about as we move forward in terms of who will get attached to the job market, and in particular what will happen to younger people whose educations have been interrupted and older people whose health needs will grow. But we have some real opportunities at the moment as well. First, I do think that the pandemic has made many people in the country realize the risky position that millions of Americans are in with respect to their housing. So many people are living paycheck to paycheck with housing as their biggest expense. 11 million of them at risk of eviction when the moratorium ends. There's a new awareness of the need to do something about housing affordability, and we need to take advantage of that awareness. And of course, there are considerable resources in play in Congress, funds that can support housing and services that would not only end homelessness for thousands, but would prevent more people from becoming homeless. There really is an opportunity to make a serious dent in homelessness and to put the nation on a path to a much more rational housing system. It's becoming clearer to a growing number of policymakers that allowing so many people to live without a home is not only bad, indeed dangerous for them, but has ramifications for everyone in the nation. It's not only a risk in terms of health, but it also has become clear that allowing so many people to experience homelessness not only has human costs, but has real economic costs, and that ensuring people have a home is not only the right thing to do, but also the smarter course. It is for this reason that your advocacy right now is key if we are both to address the growing problem of homelessness and to take advantage of the moment in terms of federal resources and policy. Simply put, as a nation such as ours, there must be a floor of housing, of food, of healthcare, beneath which we will not let people fall. So thank you all so much for joining us. We're grateful to you, and we look forward to continuing to work together to end homelessness in our nation.
Hello, my name is Henry Cisneros, and I had the honor of serving as the nation's Secretary of Housing and Urban Development in President Clinton's administration. And I had the honor of understanding in that role the significance of the homeless problem in our country. I also had the honor of watching your work and being in position to thank you repeatedly for that selfless work that's being done by Americans like you to address the issues of homelessness. We learned together that if a nation is going to address the problem of housing generally, it really should begin with those Americans who are completely unhoused. I've always believed that was the case. It ought to be our highest priority when we mention the word housing. We've always had to address the issues related to finding funding for housing because we've never had enough. We've always worked from a shortfall position, from a deficit. There just wasn't enough money to address the issues. But it may be that right this moment in our country, we're confronting a different set of opportunities. There's a series of different funding realities that have come to the fore that may just allow us to have some of the money that we always felt we needed to address homelessness. There is the American Rescue Plan, which is still being deployed to cities and municipalities and rural areas across America. That's the fund that was used because of the pandemic to try to speed the recovery. And a lot of that discretionary funding can be used to address homelessness. There's also President Biden's infrastructure plan, which sets out funds to be used for building the country's infrastructure, and more communities are acknowledging that housing is a critical piece of infrastructure, including issues to address homelessness. And then there is the president's budget. The recently presented presidential budget has funding in the key departments, especially at HUD, for approaches to homelessness, innovation, and broader strategies. So we may be entering a moment where the challenge is not going to be making the case for funding. It's going to be there, but the challenge is to use it properly, to address it, to deploy it across the country where it's greatly needed, to set the right priorities, to execute correctly. And that's, of course, where you come in. In a country as large as ours, solutions are not found in Washington and certainly cannot be executed in Washington. They require our engagement all across America. That's why we encourage you to engage and to address all those critical needs that you've identified and to double down on the work, because this may be the opportunity we've been waiting for to really make a difference in people's lives. Make a difference by giving them a platform in which to live. Make a difference by providing housing first. Make a difference by giving them a chance to address some of the other issues in their lives, from the security of a home, a decent place to live, and to take advantage of opportunities ahead of them in education, in workforce training, in getting a job, and raising a family in a decent place. This is a critical moment in our country, and we're going to work as never before. Thank you for your willingness to do exactly that, work as never before. We look forward to creating great results and being able to show that when we've asked for funding in the past, it's because we knew what we were going to do with it when we had it. This may be that moment. Good luck going forward, and thank you once again for your civic engagement in this most important challenge before our country.
Hi, my name is Dr. Denise Cole. I'm from Mount Olive, North Carolina, Duplin County, and I will be participating in Capitol Hill Day because I know what it's like firsthand to be homeless, and no one should ever have to go through that.
I'm Cullen Ryan from Portland, Maine. We have a moral obligation to end homelessness. Affordable housing is infrastructure, and we simply don't have enough. We need to adequately fund Section 8 and all parts of HUD's budget as well as services. I'm tired of people dying. It's time to act boldly and get this done.
My name is Tamika Jones. I am a beautiful Black transgender woman. Yes, I do have a lived experience of homelessness. Dealing with trying to find a job, trying to find somewhere to live, it is very, very emotional. Me being first and foremost a Black trans woman and being homeless, there's very much so obstacles. So I'm hoping that the National Alliance to End Homelessness, we can make life better for people like me, for all people.
I'm participating in Capitol Hill Day because no one should have to choose between remaining in a violent home or becoming homeless.
Hey, Lorraine, what's going on?
We're looking forward to Capitol Hill Day.
Capitol Hill Day? What day is that?
It's June 16th.
And why is that important?
You see, way back in 1865, the 13th Amendment was adopted to abolish slavery. Unfortunately, they didn't prioritize housing, and today we're experiencing the worst housing crisis ever. And it's disproportionately impacting Black people. So I'm participating because systemic racism must end.
Hi, I'm Joe from Cleveland, Ohio. Cleveland, Ohio needs new affordable housing construction. Why? Because the existing housing in Cleveland is dilapidated and is not conforming to modern housing standards.
As a Skid Row resident, I feel it is imperative that we ask our elected officials to address the racial inequality of displacement, poverty, and homelessness. I hope to give a face and a voice so that they know who their most vulnerable constituent is.
Hi, I'm Jerry Jones with the National Alliance to End Homelessness. I want to thank you for joining Capitol Hill Day today. We have more than 200 meetings happening, 1,100 registrants, and so we're very glad to have you with us. I just want to run through quickly the recommendations we're making in these legislative meetings. There are really 5 points I'd encourage you to include in your discussions. 2 of them relate to the appropriations request that the President's made of Congress for next year's budget. First, he's asked for $3.5 billion in homeless assistance. We very much support that. That would be a $500 million increase over this year's $3 billion budget. And then secondly, he's asked for $30.4 billion in housing choice vouchers. We strongly support that as well. There are 3 recommendations that are very important in the President's jobs and infrastructure bill, this massive bill that Congress is taking up now. First, universal housing choice and rental assistance. So when he was on the campaign trail, the President promised that Section 8 would be available to all who qualify. We would like to see at least a substantial step forward toward that commitment in the jobs and infrastructure bill. Secondly, he has proposed $318 billion overall in affordable housing investments. We would like to see at least a $26 billion set aside for permanent supportive housing. There's been a letter, a Dear Colleague letter that's circulated on Capitol Hill in support of that. We support it as well. And then thirdly, the President has included as really the largest part of his American Jobs Plan, $400 billion for home-based caregiving for seniors and people with disabilities. We support that, but we want to make sure that that also includes seniors and people with disability who may be formerly homeless and living in permanent supportive housing, that the service needs in supportive housing be included in that $400 billion for home-based caregiving. So those are our main focuses, our primary recommendations for today. Good luck on your meetings. We're anxious to hear how they went, and we'll talk with you soon.
Housing is a human right.